Record on Wednesday, April 5th, 2023 at 4:13 p.m. Eastern Time. And guys, as always, if you want to support the podcast, if you're watching on Rumble, you should be. There's a little red button. That's Locals. That's Rumble's Patreon. Click on that. You can support the show for like a couple bucks a month. Exclusive content, upcoming guests, behind the scenes stuff. Or in the description, there's also a link to the merch store where it's all of my own custom graphic designs on hoodies, and that's how you can support the show, and or just keep watching it for free because I have no business mind. And with that, we have on Miss Maxine Albert today. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, yes, as you said, Maxine Albert. My husband, Curtis Ellis, wrote Pandemonium, China's Global Strategy to Cripple America. And he was an economic nationalist and a trade advisor. And he started writing the book before his illness.
Mm-hmm.
And he continued writing it because he saw China, as he did for years and years and years, as our number one enemy. Sorry,
Yeah,
enemy.
yeah, yeah.
And he wanted to. He wrote this book not only as a wake up call to America, but also it has a plan of action.
Mm.
And after he passed from cancer, I got the book published. It just launched, and it couldn't be more timely with
Yeah,
all the China stuff going. So he's here speaking about it.
yeah. And he passed in 2020 or 2021.
He passed Valentine's Day 2021.
I'm sorry. That's
Thank
always
you.
difficult. It's always, yeah, no one ever wants to hear the whole "it'll get better" spiel. I mean, I've never been married, so I wouldn't know. I lost a sibling in 2014, and that
Oh,
sucked.
sorry.
One of my best friends lost a, a, a parent a couple months ago, and it is, you know, you go there and it kind of makes you take stock in life. It In some ways, it's always bad. You're always gonna cry. You're not gonna not cry, but there is something kind of peaceful about it. Once, after the tears and stuff, there is something peaceful about a funeral service. Not that this has anything to do with the show, but just thinking aloud. There is.
Yeah. Well,
It,
I think that Curtis, when the book launched it around the time that we had the guy in Montana who looked up at the sky and happened to see Chinese spy balloons like that had been hovering over missile silos, or
yeah, yeah,
hovering and lingering, and I thought, this is just like Curtis to be smiling down and
yeah.
laughing, going, here you go, here's my
You're,
message. And I just found out the Pentagon just released, I think it was yesterday, contrary to what they told us, that they didn't give any information out or nothing, that there was information going in live time, about the missile silos, and that the balloons that we were told were not even spy balloons, that they didn't have any control. They were doing figure eights over the
Mhm.
missile silos, which is what you do in aerial shows. The planes do figure eights. So the actual, I mean, the brazenness is just unbelievable. But what Curtis Ellis would say was, this is nothing new. It's been going on for years.
Yeah,
You're waking up now. The country's waking up now. This is what they do.
yeah. And unfortunately, we might. Sometimes it takes that wake up call. Sometimes it takes the kick in the pants, and it's unfortunate. But sometimes you have to have that moment where you realize that you haven't changed at all. Like for me, it was like dieting. You always know, like, in theory, you should diet. You're like, I should watch what I eat. It's not until like pants don't fit as well before you're like, all right, something's got to change, right? We
Yeah.
might have needed that. We might have needed. I'm not saying it's good, but you might need that. I mean, from I believe the intentional release of COVID to their intentional devaluing of their currency to them aiding Russia, they are a threat, and I think it's a luxury to be able to say that viewing China as an enemy is xenophobic. That's something you can say when everything is going well. The champagne socialist or the limousine liberal. You can look at things and say what is right and what is wrong when everything else is fine. But I think now we are seeing that everything else is not fine. For future listeners, today is April 5th, just for, timekeeping, April 5th, 2023. We are seeing the accelerating de-dollarization of the East through BRICS. This is not slowing down. It's never going to slow down. And to think that it is, and I also, again, in my own belief, it's not just that they're building up their military. I would imagine they're doing sabotage here. It is to sow chaos and the link to the book will be in the description. That is kind of what Curtis pointed out, is to drive us into chaos. Is that right?
Oh, exactly right. First of all, let me show you the book. It's
It's a
Pandemonium.
great cover. It's a panda with
It's
two
a
Uzis.
fantastic cover. Yes, how China just delights in what they're doing. And
Yeah.
the reason Curtis called it Pandemonium, China's global struggle to cripple America, was exactly that, about the chaos, about creating chaos. And to your point, I thought that was a great thing you said about the dieting. All of a sudden, one day you realize, well, Curtis, he said our first wake up call was COVID. All of a sudden, COVID, we couldn't get any pharmaceuticals. We couldn't get medicine because they were all in China. That was our first wake up call. Oh, but we forgot, didn't do anything about that. And then the second wake up call is when actually people looked at things and we saw the Chinese spy balloons, which is, from what I've heard and read, not only getting our information, but seeing a reaction, which was slow. Sure, come and do this over over our country. And to your point, it's about, we can collaborate, but China now says that their reaction is that it's going to be combat and confrontation. That's their new ministers saying that to the US, if we don't change the way that we're talking about Taiwan. So I think for the time for collaboration has gone. It's, will we do something now? And to your point about what's happening in our country, the spying, the espionage. Well, first of all, we have the influence of China in the movie industry, all the movies, Hollywood,
Yeah.
because there are parks there, and because they have money to distribute it. You won't find any movies that tell the truth about China or Hong Kong. You have it in the NBA, right? The NBA, they want to play games there. They won't say
Yeah.
anything. They're muffled. You have Confucius
Institutes all over the
college
United States.
institutes, which are funded by China, which are, which have the China propaganda, and you have also now more China students. I mean, there are more students from China than anywhere else in the world in our colleges, and they're paying more than America. So you don't have than the Americans. So you don't have the free speech on the campuses. Everything is like, oh, don't offend anybody. You don't. So there, it is so pervasive. And then 2 weeks ago, the chair of the House Select Committee on China, Mike Gallagher, he held a demonstration in New York at a closed police station, a Chinese police
Oh
station.
yeah.
They've opened police. I mean, this was mind blowing to me. And Christopher Wright from the FBI knows they have police stations in our country monitoring their citizens, the Chinese nationals, and distributing propaganda. So, and they've taken 3 million jobs and decimated our manufacturing. And what has the US done? We have closed shipyards, so that now, while China is building their navy, at a really fast rate, which is the way they're going to take Taiwan, we don't have the shipyards. The ones that we have are being maintained. We can't keep up with it. So we need to really, as the House Select Committee says, decouple from China. The time is now, and recognize China as our number one enemy.
Well, they 100% are. And so as not to, and I love conspiracies, but so as not to drift out into wild speculation, I'm not even going to go into an idea that I often bring up, and it's how much of it is that, we're not awake yet, and how much of it is that we're intentionally complying with them, that there are traitors within the government. But because I don't have any evidence on that, that's nothing but wild
No,
speculation.
but let me just, to that point,
Go
in the
ahead.
book, in the book, Curtis says exactly that. He said the point is to wake up. And what's the reason that we haven't woken up? Because most people now, if you take polls, will say, "Well, we don't want to do things with China, but we know another way." So the House Select Committee on China, both Democrats and Republicans, who met for the first time 2 weeks ago, said, we were wrong. We underestimated China. And Curtis is saying he never underestimated. Did they underestimate China? Did we buy the propaganda, or was it Wall Street who made money with all the investments? Was it the global corporations who were able to go, I don't care about the Americans that are not, that who lost their jobs. I'm going to make more money because they use slave labor. It's all about the money. Was it about the lobbyists that China paid lobbyists to lobby the government, and they now have investments in China? So it's the all of these sold out the American people for money and greed.
There is I don't know if you've heard of him, Brigadier General Robert Spalding. He's
Oh, of course. He actually did a blurb in the book. Yes.
I was looking at last night, and I know that he had I think he was
Yes.
following Curtis Ellis, so I'm being
Yes.
sneaky. I already knew the answer.
Yes.
Little
Okay.
behind the scenes there. Um, uh,
Yes.
he wrote Stealth War and War Without
Yes.
Rules. He's been on here twice for those. Uh, Tough guy to interview. Stoic.
Oh, is he
Marble
really?
statue.
He was so nice with,
Oh, very
helping me with
very sweet
this.
guy.
Yeah.
Oh no, no, no.
But
Of
but
course,
but
very
he
sweet
has that
guy.
general thing. I see what you mean. Yes. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of I remember talking to my mom after that, and he was like, he doesn't seem very like warm and fuzzy, and I was like, you're right, but I like that. I like that a general is not because I'm 32 and I do a podcast from my apartment. If I can win you over, that isn't good. You should not be won over by my charisma, all right? If you're just, if just Maxine's coming on here, if it's a friend's coming on here, that's good. We're all warm and happy and laughing. I shouldn't be able to win over a general because you have no idea who I'm working for. So I like that he's stone cold. Very intelligent, very nice guy. Obviously, but his books are great about that. And he talks about is it that the West was sleeping or is it that they were complicit? And
Exactly.
it's not everything is a grand plan being pulled by puppet masters, right? There are simple things, fiduciary obligations, right? Maximizing profit. And if you're a corporation and you want to assemble your phone here in the United States where bare minimum wage is like 7.25, and if they're specialized workers fabricating things, it's going to be a lot more than that. Or do you want to outsource it to Foxconn where they're making 3 cents a day? That doesn't justify it morally or ethically or in terms of nationalism, but just putting it out there on the table as an idea. I get that. I get that in theory. The Chinese, as General Spalding says, is that they don't think in terms of quarterly corporate fiduciary goals they have to hit. They look at things in years and decades and centuries, and they are looking at this. They don't look at it as that America is number one in the world and that they want to replace America. They look at it as America as a temporary holder and that they have simply fallen behind and that they are going to reclaim their rightful throne. So they look at us and go, yeah, let's keep hitting them with quarterly profit goals. That's the carrot. They are, in turn, they're looking at it decades. They're going, start in the 70s. It'll take 50 years. Remove their manufacturing base, remove their ability to make steel, armaments, pharmaceuticals, anything. That's what they're doing. So it's
Yeah.
not just that we're asleep. It's not just money. Then there's also complicit. Hey, you have true believers that the West is bad, the individual rights are bad, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are bad. You have people, you see them all the time. They're getting interviewed on CNN. You look over in the corner and you go, is that a watercolor painting of Mao? Like, believe it or not, there are true believers who are complicit with China.
Yeah. And it's interesting because Curtis addresses that all the kinds of people, exactly as you say. Also, he addresses in this book, which has a plan, to decouple from China. And so it's not like, oh, we're just going to take everything and lose money. He gives a way to first identify things, that are fall short, that we can't make, that we can only make in China, or because most things you can make in places, if it's not in America, in Mexico, let's say, where it's closer to us, and we're also can defund the Communist Chinese Party. And then he talks about incentivizing things, giving all kinds of tariffs and things, and to the Wall Streeters and the global corporations to set up permanent tariffs. Now the tariffs are temporary, so to gradually change the mindset. So if a CEO knows that this is going to be permanent, they can start on a plan to move things into America, move things back to America. So he does address all of this. And to your saying that it's a gradual thing. Well, China is looking, I mean, they're moving stronger and stronger and stronger every day, while the US is falling back, and we've created them, we're funding them. So we've funded their economic, growth, we funded their manufacturing. While our manufacturing is decimated, their manufacturing, a study came out, or research thing, last week, that their manufacturing has jumped, the best in 10 years. So they are strategically and pervasively trying to destroy us in that mission, of the US in every way that they can, including chaos. And Curtis talked about, it's not only the money. Some people, they just like the status quo. They'll just sit back and go, who knows, whatever. But the thing is, when our country first started, we didn't want to be servants of the British. We didn't want to do what they said. We didn't want to make only British things. And we revolted with the Declaration of Independence. And in this book, Pandemonium, Curtis has a new Declaration of Independence where we take back our power, change the mindset, because it's gone past the point that there's any way that anyone now, maybe months ago, maybe something, can think that China is going to help us.
Yeah. And to the complicity, there's something that always just boils my blood, is when people think that presidents or elected officials are stupid. They're not stupid. They can be evil, but they're not stupid. So when you look at Biden and, somebody makes an image of Biden, he's wearing clown paint, and they're like, worst president ever. It's like, dude, he's not an idiot. Is he in charge? He might actually have dementia. I don't know. But whoever's behind him, we're using Biden as a placeholder. That what they're doing is not an accident. You're selling the strategic oil reserve. You have no borders. You have no sovereign airspace. You're destroying the dollar, and you are just siphoning all of your munitions to Ukraine, a corrupt nation of Azov Nazis. This isn't by accident. This is a controlled demolition of the West. This guy's not stupid. A stupid person might do one of those things. They might sell the strategic oil reserve. They're doing this with military precision. There's demoralization. They want to destroy any sense of American, any sense of nuclear family. They want to censor everything. They don't want any leading news story. They want to gaslight you. They're trying to arrest a former president. This is nothing less than the controlled demolition of the West. And that's kind of even harder to fight than China, right? Because with China, at least there's an enemy. What do you do about the people within?
Well, the thing is that when you talk about arresting a former president with this case, that everybody, I've read, no matter what they think, they all agree that it's politically motivated. Okay, so of course it is, yes, but I mean, but everyone, Democrat, Republican, and some people don't care. But the thing that it does, to your point, is that China is trying to create chaos. That's what you said when we first opened, right? And that's the name of the book, Pandemonium. And by doing this with Trump, Bragg is doing President Xi's work. He's creating chaos in our country, because Barney Frank, who's a beloved Democrat, came out yesterday or the day before and said, this is wrong, indicting Trump. This is wrong. It's flimsy. There's never been more hate. He came out and said the truth. So we have so much.
That.
Yes, Barney Frank came out and said it. It's all
over.
I'm
gonna Google it. I'm gonna Google it right now. Keep
Google
speaking.
it right now. You probably don't know it because they don't want him to say that. Okay, and He said it on Newsmax, and I think he tweeted it because I looked it up.
Wow.
And it's also chaos around the world because people are looking at us and going and look and saying, "Wow, you're indicting a former president on a charge with a with a porno star, how on a politically motivated, how can you tell us about democracy?" So it's exactly doing that. Are you seeing Barney Frank? Did you find
I
him?
can't find it in any of the news.
Yes, to say Barney Frank, Google Barney Frank,
Frank
Trump
Trump
indictment.
indictment
You'll see it comes up. Yeah.
5 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Found that.
Yes. And the yeah, and
Here,
Curtis showed
you're
him.
good. Sorry, I started. No, you got it right. Newsmax 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Former
I don't
Democrat
say
Representative
things
Barney
before I
Frank.
look him up. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm very
yeah,
careful.
Trump shouldn't have been caught. No, no, I didn't know. Wow, I
And he
did not.
said there's never since he's that there's never been more really bad energy and strife in this country. So they're doing G's work. And Curtis goes through, he takes us back to the beginning of our country and shows how America was built on principle of, buy it here, make it here, respect the American citizen, and how far we've strayed from that. We became the greatest industrial power, had to take it back. And I'll even go a step further, which Curtis mentions in this book. So today we have gun violence. We have kids committing suicide by gun violence with kids. What's happening? There's something that's happening that people have lost hope. They've lost hope. They've lost sense of self. They've lost identity. It's so pervasive. It's everywhere. People are taking fentanyl that comes from China. It comes from Mexico. The president of Mexico is begging China not to send the fentanyl, right? They're taking opioids. And so what's happened then, we don't have a sense of being American anymore. We were sold out. We didn't, people didn't give their jobs away. They were taken from them. Money became the number one thing. People forgot loyalty, forgot who they are. And our country is getting worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point that now, I mean, we were talking about China taking our democracy away. I mean, look at what happened with our ex-president yesterday. That even Mitt Romney, big enemy, a big enemy of Trump, said this is not right. Jeb Bush, big enemy, because it's not right. So we're on a very slippery slope now. We have to take back our country. And Curtis says that it has to be a joint effort of the government, corporate America, Wall Street, and people to do something about it.
Do you think? Yeah, that is. It's everyone knows that this is politically motivated. Because listen, if we're gonna arrest a president, I mean, you got to arrest George Bush for the false pretense in the Iraq War that killed 7,500 American servicemen and women.
Killed
One,
our men and women,
don't forget
killed
1.5.
lives.
Don't forget 1.5 million Iraqi civilians and $7 trillion.
That's what I use. What about that?
If we're
Yeah.
gonna arrest a president, hey, I'm all for the idea of no one's above the law. I genuinely am.
Yes. But this
You
is a
know,
flimsy case. This is a flimsy case. Okay. So
Obama drone striked an American citizen overseas.
yes. Yeah.
Under Bill Clinton, China somehow got access to nuclear reentry vehicle warhead blueprints. I mean, what are we really doing? Are we going to walk this out all the way?
Curtis talks about this in this book, Pandemonium, how Clinton, when he came into office, he said, "Oh, I'm going to change things." But then the money got to him. He got the lobbyists and the influencers, and he went, "Oh, yeah, okay, well, we'll collaborate."
Yeah,
Well, that time is over.
yeah, that or they pull you into an office and say you're going to get JFK'd, which probably isn't that far from the truth. I would imagine there's a control mechanism in there, but to sort of bring it back down to not my conspiracies, because I'll float off into the ether. Um, could it also be, and perhaps aren't the stages of grieving? Isn't one of them bargaining? I often think, am I bargaining when I say it might not be the collapse of America or necessarily the hegemonic rise? I don't even know if that's a word, but the hegemonic rise of China. Could it be that we are simply moving to a multipolar world? Because all of human history is shifting from multipolar to unipolar to multipolar. You get an empire. Empire runs the show for decades or centuries. Then you go back down to multipolar where you have multiple powers, and then hot potato musical chair. Somebody else rises. Could it just be that we are moving into a multipolar world where there are? I mean, the Cold War was 4 decades of a bipolar world.
Yeah. So that's an interesting question. So the thing that I'll say is what Curtis says in his book Pandemonium by Curtis Ellis, that we could do nothing. We could sit, we could sit here, we could do nothing. We could, that the only way that China will move ahead and will take control is if we let it.
Mm.
And we do have a choice. We have a choice to do nothing. And if China wins they said they're going to take back Taiwan. If they do that, they move into the position of leadership in the world. They're going to have all the semiconductors.
Yeah, Taiwan, we have fabrication plant.
Taiwan, well, they not only this, but this strait that Taiwan leads the water, that 50% of the world commerce passes through there. So they will move into that position. And what happens is not only will it be a disaster for us in every way, but we will be under the influence of a communist country. And just last week, China and Russia just announced that they're going to control the world internet now. They're going to take the internet, they're going to change it, they're going to make it they change the internet, that doesn't mean they said they're going to.
Okay.
They're going to control the population, they're going to control elections. So that's what they're moving to. And Russia and China together have a common enemy, the US. China's using Russia because more people they can get, more countries they can get on their side. And you heard about the journalist, the Wall Street journalist that was kidnapped last week, that this is the first time that Russia kidnapped an American journalist since the Cold War because they're seeing us as weak. Because we won't do anything. And that's what they looked at when they were looking up at that with the Chinese spy balloon. Not only were they collecting our information, they were looking at our reaction. We let it go for 3 days.
Blood in the water.
Shoot it down in Alaska. Who knows the answer why? Nobody I've ever heard says why. The answers are like, well, we didn't think, it wasn't do anything. Yes, it was. So you have it right there. It's the time is now to make a change, to do something.
So the spy balloon's actually a very telling microcosm. Is it that we are incapable? Well, that's not correct. We clearly can shoot it down. Is it that we were unwilling? Well, clearly we didn't want to because we didn't. So you have to ask why. Is it that, and forget what they're telling us because they're never going to tell us the truth. Let's just put our minds into like the military leaders. That thing was spotted the moment it left Chinese shores. That thing was any ELINT, electronic intelligence, any SIGINT, signals intelligence, anything that was coming off of that, the NSA or the NRO was watching and grabbing every pixel of. If I try to fly a drone over an ICBM base, I'm going to catch a bullet in my head. They're watching that. So you then have to play out all possible outcomes. Is it that we were watching them and we wanted to see how they beam stuff back home? We wanted to get intelligence? Maybe. I don't know. It could be that we hijacked it and that the Chinese didn't want to admit that it was hijacked because that's embarrassing. And we're flying it over our bases for an act of war. That's potential. It could be that we want to see how they collect intelligence. It could be that we were beaming back fake intelligence with it. It could also be that we are just simply complicit and watched it happen. These are all possible outcomes that you can kind of apply to everything with China. Are we incapable? Are we simply unwilling? Is there some higher order military operation going on here? Is there an intelligence operation? Or is it simply complicity? Or is it goading us into war? I think last week, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, said they arrested Chinese saboteurs trying to blow up a railroad. Do I believe that? Yeah, I could see that. I also think we are trying to spark the flames for a war. And war is bad, but war with China might mean that we're not gonna roll over. I mean, that's an odd logic to say we're going to war with China. Oh, good. That means that we aren't bought out by China. That's that's kind of a hard pill to swallow because, somebody's kids are going to die.
Yeah. But what's really interesting is that I'm going to hold up the book again. It's
Absolutely. No, please, please do.
Curtis Ellis, Pandemonium, China's Global Strategy to Weaken America, available at Amazon, Cripple America, Amazon, and Barnes and Nobles.
Link in the description. Get it on Kindle, hardcover, softcover. And again, if you're not watching, you should be. It's a panda dual wielding Uzis. It's fantastic.
It is. I love the cover.
It's great.
What Curtis said, Curtis Ellis says is not advocating for war, not advocating for people. The way to do this, the way to win is the exact way that China grew and grew and grew, because we're funding our own demise.
Mhm.
We are buying their things. Wall Street is doing this. We have to start defunding them and taking their power away. Taking their power is their money, and that's the way to do it. We start doing it now. And you're looking like, yeah, is it possible? Yes, it's possible.
No, the reason I was smiling is like it's so simple. The way you do it is by shoring up your own nation, building manufacturing plants and creating jobs. That creates independence. It's like that is like
It
what
is
what
so simple, except you have people who've gotten, and Curtis Ellis also says in this book, he was a great economic expert. But it's so simple. When you have someone who's very vested in making money from China, do you want to do that? And he really interesting. He goes, like, these people who are doing this, who are keeping us interested in China because of their own money interests, they're far away from the people who've lost jobs.
yeah.
They're far away from the people who don't have food on their table. They're far away from all this stuff. And we've got to change and start thinking American. We've got to do a thing not to make less money, but to prosper and cut off our reliance. Because when China starts with Taiwan, they can and they will cut off our pharmaceuticals tomorrow in a second. That we're still using Chinese alloys in our supersonic jet planes. I mean, it's just unbelievable. When we buy things that say made in China, we have to think, well, this is taking a job away from someone. Is it a child has done this, child labor? This is a family. But more than that, we all have to do something. We have to hold our country accountable, take back our power, and stop letting money or greed be the thing that influences us.
Again, it is so simple. It's the microcosm of self-love, right? Just
It is, well, it is self-love, because but it's interesting you say that, because Curtis said that when there was a time when, in America, when you worked in a place and, the head of the company was invested in, like, you, the worker, making money and like having insurance, because then you'd spend the money, and it was a whole system of that. You could send your kids to school, whatever school they went to, you could feed your kids, you had insurance, you took pride in your job, and that whole thing is broken down. Everything is broken down, and with greed and with money, of like, who cares about that? I'll just make some money. And
mm,
look at what's happened with the fentanyl crisis, with the opioid crisis. And if you're not doing that and you're still making money, you're paying a price somewhere with your soul.
mm. Yeah, no, somewhere with your soul you are. All of these things, unfortunately, I don't think they're going to happen until there's some real pain. It's either going to be a combined Russia-China alliance with military action directly going up against the United States. It's going to be China moving on Taiwan, or a Chinese attack on the whole, even though they have been attacking us through drugs, bioweapons, and sabotage. But I mean a real kinetic attack. Unfortunately, I don't think any of these things are going to change until there's the proverbial the pants are too tight and you realize you got to lose weight. I don't.
Or else, yeah, or else they're economic warfare. And
Mhm.
finally, people will rise up and say, enough. We want to take back our country. And when that happens, if we wait, that will be too long, because every day they get ahead of us in every way. They're ahead of us technologically. They have a bigger navy. They have a bigger army. We're funding them. We created the monster.
Yeah.
We're like, we're destroying ourselves.
It's Yeah, I think it's gonna take, unfortunately, it's gonna take a I would imagine, and perhaps I'm making it too simple and I'm generalizing half the people, which I shouldn't do. But we'll just throw it out there is it seems like there's a lot of hesitation because half the country hated the previous president so much that it has, and it's fine. You can have your reasons. That's fine. I'm not, do whatever. You're an adult. You don't want to do anything that would make him even look a 1% correct. And because he was such a vocal opponent of China, you almost, I would imagine you almost don't want to admit that China is an enemy because it would make you look like, the orange guy might have been right.
But
And
the interesting thing is that now the Biden administration is saying the same thing, about China, about tariffs, and we have this new select committee on China of Democrats and Republicans that are saying China is our number one enemy. The time is very small. We have a small window. We have to take our country back and decouple, and they're looking for strategies to decouple. So at least they're saying that now. We have to hold them accountable. And Curtis said it, I think you said this also, that people have to know what's happening first. A lot of people don't realize because we've been fed the propaganda, we've been fed the misinformation. So a lot of it is about educating things. And in his book, I love the pandemonium. It is, I mean, just reading it's a fascinating and chilling account of what the Chinese Communist Party has done, their pervasive strategy to weaken us and bypass us.
yeah, um, it's unfortunately it's the best man's gonna win. That's natural selection. Ultimately, it doesn't care. Um, I think we will though, and I know that's perhaps misplaced optimism. I don't think it's not gonna. It's like all the military guys I always interview say, "We're gonna win. It's just gonna be painful first." Like they're not pessimistic. They're like, "We're gonna win." They're like,
Oh,
America has. They're
yeah.
geographically separated by two oceans, two mountain ranges, natural resources. Everyone's armed to the teeth. Like we're gonna win. They're like, it's gonna be a little bad first. Like,
That's what the generals say. And the generals now, at first, Curtis was called an alarmist because he called out China when it wasn't in fashion.
yeah,
And then now people are calling him prophetic and his writing prophetic. But all the
Nostradamus.
generals are saying, yeah, you're right, man. This is it.
And it can be done. And I always point back to this is it's very easy to look back at history and just accept it as these, right? Because history is so neat. It's just, I don't mean neat in that it's interesting. It is. I mean, it's neat and clean. There's an event, there's a causation, something happens, the end, and then we label it. World War One, World War Two. World War One was never called World War One until World War Two. World War One was called the Great War. Like, no, it's so we're looking at it through the lens of hindsight. Curtis LeMay, the Secretary of the Air Force, during World War Two, said he will never forget the fear he had when we first started doing bombing sorties over Europe, over Nazi occupied Europe. At the rate that we were losing planes, coupled with the rate at which we were building planes, we would not have an Air Force in 30 days. And he said, I will never forget that fear. And that is why after World War II, Strategic Air Command, he bolstered everything up, nuclear missiles everywhere. And people said, oh, it's so powerful. His thought process was formulated in the cauldron of fear and death.
Mhm.
And we look at it and go, oh, we won World War II and then the 50s and blah, blah. And it's like, you're not looking at where you were at that time. They realized just how screwed everything was. But they got it together and they won. So that's kind of how I look at this. I hope in 50 years or 80 years they look back and they go, oh yeah, and then World War III and America won, and then someone will go, hey, don't, maybe they'll find this podcast and they'll go, hey, it wasn't as simple as then they won. For a long time, it seemed like it was dark and we were going to lose. And, you know, that's someone that suffered from depression for, I lost a brother to suicide and I went down a dark hole for several years. For a long time, it doesn't seem like you're going to win. You keep telling yourself you're going to win, but you don't really believe it. And you keep slogging through, and the weeks and the months and the years go by. And you start going, this might not get better. And then one day you look back and you realize it got better. And it's because you just held on. And it's easy to look back now and I go, oh, those were the depressive years from there to there. And then it got better. At the time, there was no clarity. There was a fog of depression and nihilism. So I think that's how we maybe need to look at it in terms of optimism and not sinking into despair and hopelessness, is to go, it's probably going to be shitty for a little while. And I know it's scary right now, but we can win. And that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
Okay, and what Curtis Ellis would say, and what he says in the book is, yes, it's the wake up call. The book is the wake up call. I mean, to everything that's going on, it educates you and shows a plan to win.
Correct. It's very easy to just point out how bad things are. It takes a little more ingenuity to point out how can we make things better.
And here's the plan.
And here he does it. And that's the plug for the book, Pandemonium by Curtis Ellis. Maxine, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on. You were very well read in this. It's very refreshing to have someone to come on that can banter back and forth. So I appreciate that. And
well, it's my cause too. You know, I'm an American.
Very true. Very true. And so guys, in the description is that book. Get it on Kindle. You can get a physical copy. Miss Albert, I'd love to have you on again sometime. That was very fun. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
Very unconventional, but I think everybody enjoys being on the show. Yeah, stay optimistic. I think we can do it. I do.
Buy the book.
Buy the
call
book.
Your congressman, call your representative, right?
Curtis Ellis, Nostradamus, he called it. Wake up. He's looking over us. Give him some credit. Miss Albert, thank you so much. Guys, in the description, go grab the book, hard copy, Kindle, whatever you want. Go buy it, support it, read it. Thank you so much. I will send you this episode. I would love to do it again, but for now, we got to wrap this one up. Maxine, Albert, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
God bless everybody. Stay safe out there.